When people hear the name Nigeria, many assume its history began in 1914, when the British merged different regions and gave the land a new name. But this idea hides a much deeper and older truth. Nigeria's story did not begin with colonialism. It began thousands of years earlier, long before Europe even knew this land existed. Before borders, before maps, and before written records, the land we now call Nigeria was already home to organized societies, advanced technologies, and deep systems of belief. These histories were preserved mainly through oral tradition, stories passed from elders to younger generations through songs, rituals, proverbs, and ceremonies. When Europeans arrived, they dismissed oral history as unreliable, causing much of Nigeria's past to be ignored or erased. One of the strongest proofs of Nigeria's ancient history is the Nok civilization. Around 1000 BC, over 3,000 years ago, the Nok people lived in central Nigeria. Archaeologists later uncovered their terracotta sculptures, human figures with detailed facial expressions, elaborate hairstyles, and symbolic markings. These artworks remain among the oldest and most sophisticated sculptures in sub-Saharan Africa. Even more astonishing is the fact that the Nok people practiced iron smelting at a very early time. Iron tools gave them agricultural strength, military advantage, and technological progress. This discovery shattered the myth that Africa developed late compared to other civilizations. Then mysteriously, the Nok civilization disappeared. There were no written explanations, no recorded wars, and no clear evidence of what happened. They simply vanished, leaving behind artifacts buried beneath the earth, one of Nigeria's earliest unsolved mysteries. But the end of the Nok was not the end of civilization here. As centuries passed, new societies emerged, even more complex and powerful. In the southeast, the Kingdom of Nri rose as one of the oldest kingdoms in Nigeria. It was a religious and political institution, led by a priest-king called the Izenri. They didn't build an empire with armies, but with spiritual authority, spreading their influence through rituals and diplomacy. Further west, the Benin Empire became a powerhouse. Its capital, Benin City, was a marvel of urban design, protected by massive earthen walls. The Benin bronzes, masterfully cast sculptures, tell the stories of their kings, their rituals, and their history. These weren't just art. They were a library cast in metal, a testament to a highly sophisticated society. These kingdoms were not isolated. Great cities like Kano became centers of trans-Saharan trade. Caravans journeyed for months, exchanging Nigerian leather, textiles, and kola nuts for salt, beads, and horses from North Africa and the Middle East. This was a world of complex economies and international relations, thriving long before the first European ship reached the coast. The claim that Nigeria had no history before colonial rule was not ignorance. It was a deliberate distortion. By erasing the past, colonial powers justified control. But Nigeria's ancient story never truly disappeared. It waited, hidden, silenced, and buried, until now. In ancient Nigeria, leadership was never just political, it was spiritual. Kings were not merely rulers of people. They were believed to be living vessels for the divine, ruling with the authority of the gods and the ancestors. The king's body, his words, and his actions were considered sacred. His success or failure was tied directly to the prosperity or suffering of the entire society. A healthy king meant a healthy kingdom. A failing king could bring drought or famine. Among the Yoruba people, the holy city of Ile-Ife was regarded as the birthplace of humanity. According to tradition, it was here that the creator deity Oduduwa descended from the heavens on a chain, bringing a handful of earth to create the land. The ruler of this sacred city, the Uni of Ife, was seen as a direct descendant of this deity, a divine ruler chosen by destiny. From this spiritual center emerged art that stunned the world. Bronze and brass heads of such extraordinary realism they seemed to breathe. When Europeans first discovered them, they refused to believe Africans could create such masterpieces, inventing theories that they must have come from ancient Greece or the lost city of Atlantis. They could not comprehend this was the face of African genius. In the mighty Benin kingdom, the Oba was the center of the universe. He ruled through a highly organized system of chiefs, priests, and artisan guilds, each with its own sacred duties. There were guilds for ivory carvers, brass casters, weavers, and leather workers, all serving the spiritual and physical needs of the kingdom and its divine king. The capital, Benin City, was a marvel of careful planning with straight, wide roads, advanced drainage systems, and the legendary Great Walls of Benin, massive earth walls that stretched for thousands of kilometers, once among the largest man-made structures on Earth. This was a kingdom built on divine order. Across these societies, religion governed law, justice, and morality. Oaths sworn before deities were unbreakable bonds, and breaking them was believed to bring swift punishment from the spirit world. Priests, diviners, and healers held immense influence. The Babalawo, the Yoruba father of secrets, would consult the Ifa divination system, interpreting the will of the gods to guide state decisions. This secret knowledge of herbs, astronomy, metallurgy, and human psychology was passed down secretly through generations, forming the foundation of governance, medicine, and philosophy. This spiritual system maintained order for centuries without written constitutions or police forces. The fear of ancestral judgment and spiritual retribution was a far more powerful deterrent than the fear of any earthly punishment. When foreign religions arrived, this entire framework of governance was misunderstood, labeled primitive, and systematically attacked. Shrines were burned, sacred objects were looted, entire libraries of oral knowledge were lost as the elders who held it were converted or silenced. But this spiritual power was never fully extinguished. It survived hidden in traditions, celebrated in vibrant festivals, and embedded in the soul of the people, a testament to a system of governance rooted in the sacred. Long before Europeans arrived on the West African coast, the region that would become Nigeria was a nexus of global power. It was not an isolated land waiting to be discovered, but a vibrant network of empires, interconnected by commerce, diplomacy, and culture. This is the story of Nigeria's forgotten place at the center of the ancient world. In the north, the mighty Kanem-Bornu Empire flourished for over 600 years. Centered around Lake Chad, it was ruled by kings known as the Mais, who presided over a sophisticated system of nobles, military commanders, and Islamic scholars. Kanem-Bornu's power came from its control over the critical trans-Saharan trade routes, the ancient highways of the desert. Caravans transported salt, leather, gold, and enslaved people north, while books, fine textiles, Arabian horses, and weapons flowed south. This exchange brought immense wealth and, crucially, knowledge. Islam entered the empire peacefully, through trade and scholarship, not conquest. The Mais adopted the faith while preserving indigenous traditions, creating a unique hybrid society. They exchanged letters and emissaries with sultans in North Africa, engaging in international diplomacy centuries before the first European ships appeared. In the southwest, the Oyo Empire rose as West Africa's most formidable military state. Its strength was its cavalry, a force of elite warriors on horseback that thundered across the savannas, conquering and controlling vast territories. In a region where horses were a tactical advantage, Oyo's army was unmatched. But its true genius lay in its political structure. The king, the Alafin, was not an absolute monarch. His power was checked by a council of 7 chiefs, the Oyo Mesi, who represented the people. If an Alafin became corrupt or tyrannical, the Oyo Mesi had the authority to command him to take his own life, a system of checks and balances that predated similar concepts in Europe. This political sophistication ensured stability and prevented the abuse of power. Further east, power took a different form. The Aro Confederacy was not a military empire, but an economic and religious powerhouse. Its influence was built on trade, strategic alliances, and the spiritual authority of the Abini Ukpabi oracle, known to outsiders as the Long Juju. This feared and respected oracle, located at Arachukwu, was the supreme court for the entire region. Rulers and traders sought its guidance, and its judgments were final, believed to be the will of the gods. The fear of spiritual punishment was more effective than any army. By controlling this divine authority, the Aro manipulated trade routes, settled disputes, and commanded a vast commercial network that stretched across southeastern Nigeria, all without a centralized king or a standing army. From the shores of Lake Chad to the forests of the coast, pre-colonial Nigerian societies were dynamic and innovative. Their markets buzzed with trade, their artisans crafted world-renowned bronze and terracotta art, and their traders forged connections across continents. This was not a land on the edge of history. It was at its very heart. Despite centuries of colonial disruption, the transatlantic slave trade, and the deliberate suppression of its identity, Nigeria was not erased. Its spirit was not broken, it endured. In the face of systematic attempts to bury its history, the people adapted, its cultures survived, and its identity persisted in 1,000 hidden forms. Today, that hidden legacy is rising to the surface, demanding to be seen. The wisdom of the past lives on, woven into the very fabric of daily life. It echoes in the proverbs shared by elders, in the rhythms of the talking drum that still tell stories across vast distances, and in the names given to children, each carrying a fragment of history and hope. The vibrant festivals that erupt in color and sound across the country are not mere performances. They are living archives of spiritual systems, like the Orisha traditions that predate colonial rule by centuries. The intricate etiquette, the titles of respect, the complex flavors of the cuisine, these are all remnants of a powerful past that refused to die, passed down in defiance of erasure. This is resilience made manifest. Now a new generation is leading a powerful awakening. Fueled by digital tools and a hunger for truth, young Nigerians, both at home and in the diaspora, are questioning the colonial narratives they were taught in school. They are building global networks, creating online forums and using social media to share the histories that were once suppressed. Archaeologists are unearthing new evidence of advanced societies at sites like Igbo Ukwu and Nok. Historians are revisiting oral traditions, recognizing them not as myths but as invaluable libraries of knowledge. Artists, filmmakers, and musicians are reclaiming their heritage, blending ancient motifs with modern styles to create something entirely new, yet deeply rooted. This is a reclamation on a massive scale, and so we must see Nigeria differently. It is not simply a young nation struggling with post-colonial challenges like corruption or political instability. It is the living descendant of sophisticated civilizations that mastered bronze casting in Benin, built the vast earthworks of Sungbo's Erido, and developed complex systems of governance and philosophy. The challenges of today cannot be understood without acknowledging the deep wounds of yesterday, the disruption of a trajectory that was once shaping West Africa. The greatest mystery is not that Nigeria has problems. The real mystery is how, after everything, so much of its strength, creativity, and intellectual heritage survived. As Nigerians rediscover this profound past, they gain the power to reshape their future. History is no longer a silent, dusty artifact to be confined to a museum. It is a source of pride, a blueprint for innovation, and a powerful declaration of identity in a globalized world. It informs the tech innovator in Lagos, the Nollywood director in Asaba, and the fashion designer in Abuja. The buried stories are rising, and this time they are being told, celebrated, and owned by Nigerians themselves. They are building a new narrative, one of strength, resilience, and limitless potential, on a foundation of truth that can no longer be denied. If you enjoyed this documentary, like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more hidden African history.
And as Nigerians began to rediscover their history and identity, a new chapter slowly began to unfold. By the early 20th century, British colonial rule had tightened its grip on the region called Nigeria. Traditional systems had been weakened, foreign laws imposed, and economic resources controlled by outsiders. But beneath the surface, resistance was growing. Nigerians were no longer willing to remain silent. Educated elites, traditional leaders, journalists, and activists began to demand change. Newspapers became tools of resistance. Political movements emerged. Nigerians started asking a powerful question. Why should a people with such a rich history be ruled by foreigners? By the 1940s and 1950s, nationalist leaders like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, and Ahmadu Bello rose to prominence. Though they came from different regions and backgrounds, they shared one common goal: self-rule. Through political parties, negotiations, and constitutional reforms, pressure mounted on Britain to grant independence. Then finally, history changed. On October 1st, 1960, Nigeria officially broke free from British colonial rule. The Union Jack was lowered, and the green-white-green flag was raised for the first time. Nigeria became an independent nation, free to govern itself. But independence was not the end of the struggle. It was the beginning of a new one. The country inherited borders drawn by colonial powers, deep ethnic divisions, and systems not designed by its own people. The challenge now was unity, identity, and nation building. Still, independence marked a powerful moment. It was proof that Nigeria, despite centuries of disruption, had reclaimed its voice. From ancient civilizations to colonial rule, and finally to freedom, Nigeria's story is one of resilience, survival, and rebirth. And that story is still being written. If you enjoyed this journey through Nigeria's hidden history, please like, share, and subscribe for more African stories that deserve to be told.